Coming up, inspiring the next generation of young aviators in Oregon. We fly one of the toughest instrument approaches in the world, and a look at the latest tech from AEA in Vegas, and electric airplanes getting closer to reality. AOPA Live this week begins in just a moment.
Build and flying with the Sonix aircraft B models. The B models offer more room and comfort, more fuel, more panel space, more engine choices, and the same great Sonix aircraft flight characteristics. Learn more at sonixaircraft.com.
This is AOPA Live This Week with Tom Haynes and Melissa Rudinger.
The FAA lives to regulate the skies another day. Hello and welcome to AOPA Live This Week. I'm Melissa Rudinger. Tom Haynes will join us from New Zealand in just a moment. President Trump signed a $1.3 trillion spending bill to fund the federal government for the rest of the fiscal year. The bill includes FAA funding and an FAA extension through September 30th. The current authorization was set to expire on March 31st. The extension will give the lawmakers a chance to work on a long-term authorization bill for the FAA. And AOPA believes airports funded by the FAA using your tax dollars should be accessible to all pilots. Unfortunately, that's not true everywhere. Some FBOs charge unreasonable fees, making airport access cost prohibitive. John Wayne Airport in Orange County, California is an example of an airport taking action to ensure affordable access for all ranges of general aviation. Last year, after complaints of unreasonable prices, the Orange County Board of Supervisors voted to replace Signature Flight Support with ACI Jet. The new FBO is much more friendly to general aviation aircraft.
I think we really impressed on the Board of Supervisors that John Wayne Airport is essentially an on-ramp or off-ramp, as you might view it, to a highway in the sky. And, you know, everybody that has an appropriate vehicle and appropriate license has a right to use it.
Since ACI Jet came to John Wayne, GA traffic has increased significantly.
Yeah, I think the avgas numbers at John Wayne kind of speak for themselves. Fuel sales are up anywhere from 50 to 200%, depending on what month you're looking at. And that's a result of more reasonable pricing and people who should have access to the airport having access and using the airport.
John Wayne is the perfect example of a self-help airport. The board saw a problem and fixed it. The fight against egregious FBO pricing is one of AOPA's top advocacy initiatives. We're continuing to work with the FAA and at airports across the country to ensure fair pricing and access. And advocacy on a global level can make things better for general aviation worldwide, which is why the International Council of Aircraft Owner and Pilot Associations was created. Some 73 countries are members of IAOPA, and delegates from many of those countries are meeting this week in Queenstown, New Zealand for the 29th IAOPA World Assembly. Tom Haynes drew the short straw and had to make the long trip to near the bottom of the world. He joins us now from Queenstown. So Tom, what's up with the agenda for worldwide aviation?
Good day, Melissa. Actually, it's tomorrow here, I think. Something like 17 hours ahead of you. But anyhow, we're having a great convention down here with a lot of great representation. But hey, no matter what the time difference is between here and the United States, GA pilots down here are dealing with many of the same issues that we have in the United States. A top issue for many of the world's AOPAs is medical certification standards. Some countries have moved to somewhat less restrictive requirements for certain kinds of aircraft and flying, but none have been able to move as far as the United States.
But I think there's also been some successes, particularly in the U.S., where we've seen the expanded medical reform. I'd like to see how we can participate globally in that.
Over 30,000 people since the 1st of May last year are enrolled in this alternative means of compliance called the Basic Med. It has been accepted by the insurance industry. There are no qualms about that. And it is now in place, and I would think very likely we'll see close to 50,000 people by the end of 2018.
IAOPA is developing guidelines that countries can use to create new, less restrictive medical certification standards. Delegates here at the World Assembly are also looking at issues of airspace access, including ADS-B equipage requirements and deadlines, and performance-based navigation and drones and pilotless aircraft. But hey, you can't come to a beautiful country like this and spend your whole time in a conference room. So you got to go out and do some flying, and the great thing is all the great places you can go with a general aviation airplane and the great vistas that you get to see as you're en route. I took off in a mall, headed for the grass strip at Nokamai Station, a sheep and cattle ranch south of Queenstown in the center of the South Island.
No, Nokamai Station is just slightly over 42,000 hectares in size. It rises from 650 feet on the river flats to over 6,000 feet on the high country at the back.
And without much ground to cover, it's not surprising that general aviation plays a role in station management. Brian Hoare learned to fly in 1960 and then bought this Oster J-1B Autocrat. Today the station has a small fleet of aircraft, including helicopters, to get around the spread.
The 2 hill airstrips that we use for agriculture, fertiliser spreading from, and then we've got 3 on the lower flats that we use for fixed wing. We also use the helicopter a lot here too.
And even the sheepdogs fly here. Shepherds and dogs are flown to remote pastures, getting to work moving sheep in minutes rather than long hours driving unimproved roads. Like many of New Zealand's large stations, Nokamai hosts guests as well as 30,000 sheep. You can fly into this nicely maintained strip nestled between the peaks and stay with Brian's family in one of these guest homes. And we're especially grateful to the great hospitality of the New Zealand pilots who mustered almost 20 airplanes to come and provide sightseeing flights out of Nokamai to all the World Assembly guests. They got to experience what it's like flying around in this great country. New Zealanders are known for their zeal for adventure, and especially here in Queenstown, there's lots of adventure tourism going on, but the last place you want adventure is in the cockpit of an airliner. Yet adventure you get flying into Queenstown Airport. The airport is situated at the apex of deep gorges, water and rocks at each end. The runway only 5,900 feet long, and that's pretty short by airliner standards. Snaking its way through the deep valleys, the runway 23 RNP approach is famous worldwide. A video of the approach has been watched more than 4.8 million times on YouTube. Graham Cheel, manager of aircraft operations for Air New Zealand, arranged for me to fly in the jump seat of their Airbus A320 from Auckland into Queenstown, and it was an adventure indeed.
This is the lowest runway centerline alignment altitude of any RMP approach in the world. We are getting onto the centerline at 350 feet in cloud.
The Airbus navigation display was alive with browns, yellows, and reds as we snuggled up to the ridges while thundering down the valley.
On the runway 23 approach, we're flying in the lee of the Remarkables, so we get shielded from all the wind, and just at that point where we're getting disengaging the autopilot, we're exposed to 30 knots of crosswind coming from the left from behind the Remarkables, which adds to the complexity of the approach. It's a very short runway, has runway icing, so all these issues adds up to make Queenstown a very challenging airport for pilots, and only specially trained pilots, a selected group of specially trained pilots, fly into Queenstown for Air New Zealand. The pucker factor coming in here, as you call it, is the environmental issues there. The extreme turbulence, the wind shear, tailwinds on approach, swirling around and sometimes changing right down into the flare. All of a sudden you get hit by a massive crosswind, and so you cannot relax on this approach at all. You've got to be on your game.
My thanks to Captain Perry Earwacker and First Officer Scotty Vincent for inviting me into their Airbus cockpit to get a look at that modern marvel that gets these many tourists into Queenstown safely day and night, and even in some really low weather conditions. So Melissa, it was pretty neat to be able to see that approach, and as we said in the opening, it's all over the internet, and you can go out and watch it.
Yeah, so that's a pretty complex approach, and like you said, it's pretty famous for flying in all sorts of weather conditions and terrain. Do they use WAAS? That's my question, like we do here in the U.S.
Actually, they don't have WAAS down here. I was surprised to learn that, and as a result, even though the GPS and FMS derived position for the airplane, because it's not WAAS enhanced, that actually the approach course moves around by as much as 100 meters throughout the day, depending on temperature and ambient conditions and that sort of thing. So as a result, it's not as precise as it could be if they had a corrected signal like WAAS, like we have in the United States, and we've taken advantage of for more than a decade now. Most of us have been flying LPV approaches. So that's one technology upgrade that New Zealand has in the works to come up with an improved WAAS GPS position of some sort, probably using WAAS, something like that. So They've got some investment to do in that, but it's a much smaller country, obviously, so it's a little harder for them to justify that kind of expense, even though we've had it, like I said, in the United States for more than a decade now.
Well, so stay tuned for more technology coming to New Zealand. And you're there for at least another week, right?
Yeah, we are, and we'll be recording the show down here next week from the North Island. So stay tuned. We'll tell you more about what it's like to fly in New Zealand and how easy it is, actually, for American pilots to come down here, get checked out in a New Zealand airplane, get a certificate, license to fly down here, and go enjoy the amazing things to do with a GA airplane in New Zealand. See you then.
Bye, Tom. Thank you. And if you love flying adventures like flying in New Zealand, AOPA has a new tool to help you plan your next trip.
We're launching our new AOPA Travel Pilot bi-weekly email newsletter on April 1st, so it's coming up soon. Our newsletter is going to be full of stories, videos, breathtaking photos to give you the ideas, the motivation, travel tools, and even AOPA members only special travel discounts so that you can plan your next great general aviation adventure.
The Travel Pilot newsletter will have stories about all kinds of getaways from local destinations to international trips. The newsletter is written by pilots who have experienced these destinations, including AOPA's editors and travel writer Krista Worthy. You can sign up for the newsletter at aopa.org/travelpilot. Coming up after the break, some new affordable high-tech avionics, electric airplanes coming to the U.S. and inspiring the next generation. You're watching AOPA Live this week.
Angel Flight West. Pilot volunteers making sure that people, children and adults who need life-saving treatment can get to the treatment they need. As pilots, we're always looking for an excuse to go flying. So the next time you want to get a $100 hamburger, perhaps you should fly a volunteer flight for Angel Flight West. You'll be deriving satisfaction, purpose, and meaning from serving a cause greater than yourselves and flying.
Welcome back. There's lots of good news coming out of the Aircraft Electronics Association convention in Las Vegas this week. The convention gives manufacturers a chance to debut the latest and greatest aviation tech. Aspen Avionics unveiled an affordable new electronic flight instrument. The new instrument, called the Evolution E5, consolidates an attitude indicator, directional gyro, and course deviation into a single box for just under $5,000. Aspen is using STC approval for the new unit. And it's another example of AOPA, the FAA, and industry working together to more affordably modernize the GA fleet. And several companies announced new autopilots at the show. Bendix King is back in the digital autopilot market. The new KFC 230 offers advanced safety features and a touchscreen interface. It's designed to fit in the existing form factor of several popular legacy Bendix King autopilots. Cost for the system as an upgrade is around $10,000. And with the deadline looming to install ADS-B out, manufacturers are working to make it as easy as possible to equip. Trig Avionics announced what it's calling the Express Lane service. Aircraft owners with select avionics can have the Trig TT31 ADS-B solution installed in as little as 5 hours. Avidyne announced their new partner for ADS-B in. The company's now bundling the FreeFlight Ranger with Avidyne integrated avionics systems and ADS-B out transponders. The company used to use products from Navworks. ACR Electronics rolled out a new personal locator beacon. The new device is exceptionally small and light, so it can easily fit into a pocket. It's activated by extending the antenna and opening the cover to prevent accidental activation. You can find out more about all the new products from the AEA convention on our website. Big news for electric airplanes this week. Siemens showcased their all-electric E aircraft in the U.S. for the first time. The airplane is powered by a 60-pound, 74-horsepower motor. The two-seater is similar to the Siemens Magnus E Fusion that debuted in Europe 2 years ago. Siemens has lofty predictions for the future of electric aircraft. The company predicts that by 2050, e-propulsion will be the standard for all aviation segments. And the fully electric Sunflyer is getting closer to takeoff. The Sunflyer 2 just completed taxi tests, and the company says the airplane is close to first flight. The first Sunflyer is a 2-seat trainer with 4-seat version coming shortly after. Company says the airplane will change the industry with operating costs under $20 an hour. This past weekend, thousands gathered at the 29th International Women's Aviation Conference in Reno, Nevada. The conference is all about celebrating a shared passion for aviation and aerospace. This year, attendees were met with a variety of career opportunities. Many companies were hiring on-site and scholarship opportunities were plentiful. Over $700,000 of scholarships were awarded during the event, including the first of AOPA's flight training scholarships for 2018. And further out west in Oregon, an organization is working to get middle and high school students interested in aviation. AOPA Associate Web Editor Dave Tullis has the story about the Southern Oregon Air Academy.
A thundering Erickson Aircrane helicopter captured the attention of several hundred middle and high school students. It's part of an educational kickoff event at Oregon's Grants Pass Airport put on by the Southern Oregon Air Academy. The youth and their parents were surrounded by aircraft, pilots, and educators as new aviation-based learning initiatives were announced for the city. One of the highlights was a talk by Shasta Ways, who recently completed an around-the-world flight in a Beechcraft Bonanza.
It was so special to share the Dreams Tour Global Flight with the audience and see their reaction, see their faces. I mean, it was a great crowd, and it was very special to connect with the kids here in Oregon.
Shasta helped open the students' eyes to all of the career opportunities available in aviation. Ninth grader Eden Campbell, one of the students at the event, has big hopes for a career in aviation.
Well, I personally really would love to travel, and aviation is one of the ways that you can do that. So if I have a job where I can fly around the world all the time, that'd be really cool. I think it'd be cool to fly for a commercial jet and get to fly other people and help them see the world too.
And the Southern Oregon Air Academy is all about helping students like Eden achieve their aviation career goals. The organization announced several new initiatives to grow the aviation community in the region. The expansion of an aviation summer camp is just the first step. The long-term goal is to provide an in-school program where students get dual credit for studying aviation.
They'll work on plane build programs at our facility. They'll get credit for Rogue Community College, that's our local two-year college, and at the end, hopefully through that process of high school, college, then be able to output into the workforce.
Horizon Air also announced a $7,500 flight training scholarship to help commercial pilots complete their CFI certificate. It's all part of giving these passionate future aviators the tools they need to fulfill their dreams of flight.
This is David Toulis for AOPA Live.
It's really nice to see young people engaged in aviation. And you can read more about the aviation initiatives in Southern Oregon on our website. And that will do it for us this week. Look for more news from Tom Haynes in New Zealand next week, and I'll be here in the studio. Thanks for watching.
Meet the pilots who fly with AOPA Insurance. They love flying and saving money, just like you. At AOPA Insurance, we understand how you fly and provide the coverage you need to keep on flying. Call for a free quote and see which AOPA insurance plan is right for you.